Alright, so let's go over this example. It says, let angle A and angle B be acute angles. So acute angles, how would you guys describe acute angles?
Less than 90 degrees.
It's like a cute little bunny. It's small. It's less than 90 degrees. So that's your hint. Then it tells you it's also a right triangle. Use a calculator to approximate the measures of angle A and angle B to the nearest 10th degree. Example A, I have sine of A equals 0.87. A represents an angle. Previously, you wrote something here, right? You either wrote a capital letter that represents the angle, or actually a number in either degrees or radians. And then we would put in our calculators and you would get the decimal. Okay? So here's a visual. Here's angle A, here's my right triangle. So it tells me sine, so basically the opposite of the hypotenuse has a ratio of 0.87. But in this problem, angle A is an unknown. Well, how do we solve that? We do something called the inverse. Everyone say inverse?
Inverse.
A simple word for inverse means to switch. Class, what's another name for inverse?
The switch.
What's another name for switch?
Inverse.
We're going to take these two and we're going to switch them. Now, in order to switch them, I have to take the inverse. So that's the -1 button. So this is what I'm going to put into my calculator. Sine, the inverse of sine of, we're switching them, right? 0.87 equals my angle. Now it tells us degree mode. So when I take out my calculator, I'm going to make sure it's in degree mode, pressing mode. It is. I would check it every single problem, trust me. And then I'm going to actually type this in. So here's my calculator ready equation. I've shown this. What would make me happy is showing me the arrows. What are you showing me, class?
Arrows.
So now I'm going to write that inverse of sine. So notice how it's the yellow button. Do you see that? So I'm going to press second sine 0.87 and press enter. Then it tells me that I need to round to the nearest 10th. So that would be 60.5. A is approximate because you're rounding 60.5 degrees. That means if this angle is 60.5 degrees, then the opposite over the hypotenuse, if you divide that ratio, you get 0.87. Let's do another example. I have cosine of an angle. This angle is called B. So cosine of B, angle B equals 0.15. Remember cosine. So here's angle B. That's my starting point. We've talked about that. And then from here, that's the opposite. But in cosine, I don't need the opposite side. I have the adjacent and the hypotenuse. This ratio, where you're dividing a fraction adjacent to the hypotenuse, equals 0.15. And this angle right here is unknown. Well, just to solve for it, all I have to do is take the what class?
Inverse.
Class, what's another name for inverse?
Switch.
If you had to make inverse a symbol, what would you write, class? You would have a -1. To show me, as someone said, you will use the arrows. So I have the inverse of cosine. Now we're switching them, right? Instead of writing B, I'm going to write 0.15 equals B. So when you're doing this switching, pay attention here. When you're doing this switching, you have to show the inverse by the -1. Remember, that's not the reciprocal. Let's put that in our calculators. Double check it's on degree mode. Second, inverse of cosine equals 0.15. Remember, you're only using the inverse button when you're finding an angle. I round that to the nearest tenths, what do I get? 81.4 degrees. Box that, and there I got my two answers.